I'm joined by Ruben Hurtado. Ruben has spent the past almost 3 years in the real estate industry in the Seattle area. He's one of the better known ones. Prior to that, Ruben's experience extended across multiple fields, amongst which he served as the director of a Gold's Gym, a lead personal trainer, as well as a fitness manager at All America Fitness. All this he has successfully managed to accomplish after completing 9 years of service as a police officer in Columbia, South Carolina. Prior to that, Ruben has proudly served his country as a team sergeant for Civil Affairs Tactical Assessment Team in the U.S. Army. Ruben, with that said, thanks for being here. It means a lot.
I appreciate you having me. I really do.
Awesome. So let's go to the beginning. You were born.
I was.
And then what?
Then what? Okay. My parents were in the Netherlands. My mom was working with NATO. My father was in the Army. It's called AFCENT. The exact abbreviation for what that stands for, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was stationed there. They were there approximately 3 years or so, and then they had me. Then they had my brother. From there, we moved around a bit. Where exactly overseas in timelines, sometimes it's a little gray, but we ended up in Arkansas, then Oklahoma. My parents unfortunately divorced at that time. And then my mother took custody of us too, and we went to Los Angeles.
Oh.
We were there for the remainder of school, and then after high school, I joined the Army.
So you went to the Army?
I went into the Army, went into the military police. In 1996 is when I enlisted. And then I graduated that spring the following year, and then went to Germany. Was stationed with the 630th Military Police Company in Bamberg, Germany. Germany was an amazing experience. I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have as I've gotten older. Deployed to Bosnia while I was there for Operation Joint Guard and Forage. And that was a really enlightening time for me. I think anyone at that age should serve in some capacity, whether it's civil service, military service. It does a lot for you and did a lot for me, and it will open doors, and it did. I was there deployed probably 6 months. I got to see a side of life I had never seen. The Bosnian War had ended, and we were there for the aftermath. Military police, route security is one of our main things that we had to do, and then make sure that the police that were there were not being corrupt. We couldn't see it all, but we saw some and took care of what we needed to take care of. It was a pretty short deployment. I think it was only 6 months that I was there. I went back to Bamberg, Germany. Finished up my tour. If you're a single soldier, you do 2 years in Germany. You can do an extension. It's called a COT. I tried because my unit was being deployed to Kosovo. That was my family, and so I felt very attached to them, and I didn't want to leave. But when you're in the military, you are owned in a sense, and so I was denied my extension because the needs of the Army were I needed to be in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. So that's where I went, and South Carolina and Germany can't be any different.
Right.
I got there in July, and it was 115, and I hated my life initially. I was kind of lost, but I met some pretty good soldiers. Ended up having a woman that ended up being my wife when I was there. My first marriage, got married. The goal and then the reality were not the same as most times in life. Goal was to be a police officer for the civilian side after I got out of the Army,
right,
for only a couple of years, and then moved to California and become a cop in Los Angeles.
Huh.
And that didn't happen. What happened was divorce and getting quite comfortable where I was in Columbia, South Carolina, and I became a police officer there. I really loved my life. I loved that job, and the passion was amazing, everything about it. Met great people, great experiences. And then one morning in 2005, February, walking my dog. So typically night shift, get off at 5:30 in the morning, get home around 6. And checking my mail, and one of my pieces of mail was Western Union. Thought it was money. Working as a police officer in that city, we didn't get paid very much. And so I was pretty excited until I opened it. The words that caught my eye was a sentence that said not to exceed 545 days. So I knew right there it wasn't money, it was something. And then I remember seeing by order of the president, and I said, oh my God, this is orders. I'm going back into the military.
Wow.
And I had just started seeing somebody at that time. I remember she had a baby, and it wasn't mine, but I was pretty attached, and I was thinking to myself, this is going to be pretty tough. But, I wanted a federal law enforcement job, and there were a lot of things written in these orders. If you didn't report, you'd be flagged in the federal system. You couldn't get a job in federal. And so there was never really a doubt of, I'm going to ignore this. I have to go.
You had to do it.
That's what you have to do. And, CNN was pretty on top of the reporting. It was pretty hot in Iraq as far as the activity going on. So remember, I called my father the next day and said, hey, your son's going back in the Army. And then I realized my brother was just deployed himself. And I said, wow, we're going to be in Iraq at the same time. That's definitely crazy, exciting, scary. My father's going to be freaked out about it.
Right.
So I reported 28 days later.
Wow.
To an Air National Guard base in South Carolina, not too far from where I last was stationed, Fort Jackson. McGrady, I believe it was called. What this was, the Army was so short-handed on people, they called up almost anybody and everybody. What they needed is they needed people that had a civilian occupation that would complement the need that was required in that country. So civil affairs was the branch or the job in the Army that I was going to be called up for. I had no idea what that even was.
Right.
And being a liaison with the Iraqi police is what I initially told it was going to be. So we reported to this Air National Guard. We didn't have uniforms yet because we were all civilians. Mm-hmm. And we were marching in jeans and T-shirts, and it was just kind of a joke, I thought. But it was a real world thing happening. All these people were either retired, medically retired, had been out of the Army like me for years, and we were coming back. And it was pretty crazy.
Wow. Because
people were trying to find ways to get out of it. And some things happened there, and some people succeeded.
Wow.
Maybe ashamed about it now, but it happened. Anyhow, the real estate thing came up probably a year into working at Gold's Gym Redmond when I was making very good money, and I said, well, I can actually afford a house now. I'm late to the game, but I want to do it. So my wife and I got engaged in 2014, had a scheduled wedding in Australia, June 2015. We're going to elope. Started looking for houses in January of that year. Didn't know who to call, what to look for, how to call, had no idea.
So where were you living at the time?
We were living in Issaquah, Washington.
Issaquah, Washington, okay.
Mm-hmm. And hadn't really looked and saw how expensive houses are. Once we said, well, we're not going to live in Issaquah probably, because the houses that we wanted were about $150,000 to $200,000 more than we wanted to be. I had a VA loan that I know I could get. I didn't know what bank I should use. How do you know what bank to use, and who's better than the other?
Right.
How do you know? I don't know. And I want to go see a house. Okay, how do I do it? I don't know. What do I do? Well, Redfin was pretty hot, so Redfin's got a really great app. Their website's pretty user-friendly, so we searched on that. We would communicate, my wife and I, notes through houses. What do you think? Love this. You see the little heart. That's kind of what we did. But we didn't do it the right way. We weren't pre-approved. We were just looking at houses. We were thinking we were using the right method to investigate what our payment would be. We were actually wrong on a couple of things, because do you really know what your insurance is going to be? Do you know what your payment's going to be? You don't know what rate you're going to have. So a lot of it was a rough estimate. So I would say probably 2 weeks into our search, after going to open houses, some brokers would talk to us, some not as much. And I remember feeling the lack of energy going into the open houses from the people there. No idea what their day had been like, but thinking, we need to figure out if we're going to get help. Do we have to have help? Can we buy a house without help? I don't know how this works.
Right.
Representation, what does that mean? No clue. So we called a real estate broker and we set up a meeting. I believe that first one, it was a Coldwell Banker broker. They had to cancel on us. Something came up. And it was like, I think a week prior we had made the appointment. So that was off-putting for me. I've been in your book for a week and now you can't meet me because you have a schedule conflict. That didn't sit well. So I told my wife, no, maybe my standards are higher, but next. We'll go to the next one. The next one, they never seemed to answer their email quick enough. And then the next one, it was just poor communication as well as not understanding what we wanted. We wanted to live in this area, but we kept getting houses from other areas sent to us. And we felt that we were doing a better job finding our houses through the app than the actual real estate broker was. So I thought, trying to find value, what exactly is happening here? I'm not seeing anything. Do we have the same information? Yes, and we seem to be finding it quicker. Okay, maybe that's just not the right guy. So we ended up getting somebody else, and it was a Redfin broker. But I didn't realize that when you have a Redfin broker, you don't necessarily always see them or deal with them because at the time they were Redfin associates. So if you want to go see a house, somebody you don't know would be there to open the key box and the door, and they really don't know who you are. Otherwise, you have an appointment. So I say, hey, is so-and-so going to get back with me? And they typically would say, I don't know. You got to get with her. What was happening is every time we wanted to make an offer on a house, we could not make an offer on a house because by the time they responded back, it was already pending. By the way, at this time, we were not pre-approved still. So that real estate broker shouldn't have even been doing any of this because they don't know if we're even qualified to buy a house.
Wow. So
didn't know that. So the fifth time, we took a recommendation from somebody at my work who had just bought a house and said, try this guy. It wasn't the smoothest, but it was definitely the best experience out of the previous four. So we ended up buying. And I was pretty happy where I was. Had a nice staff at Gold's Gym, Redmond, and really the success was great. But I was working a lot. I was working a lot of hours and wasn't getting outside. I was always in a building. I just didn't like that. So probably a week before my house closed, the loan officer called me and said, I think you might want to consider changing careers. I think real estate's for you.
Just by working with him, he picked up on the fact that
picked up on that. And I said, you know, I kind of intrigued, but I don't think so. So he said, do me a favor. I'm going to set up this meeting, this interview with you and somebody that I really trust and know, and you guys just kind of talk. And I said, okay, that's fine. So the interview, or I shouldn't say interview, to me, it wasn't an interview when I got there. I thought it was just going to be a meeting. It was either September or October, so maybe a month after we closed the house. I met Albie Moshkatel and Shai Bundy from John L. Scott, the Renton office. Oh. And I remember thinking in my head as I'm driving down there, I don't want to work in Renton. I just want to work in Renton. I don't know why, but I want to be in Seattle, or I want to be in Bellevue.
Just Renton didn't sound...
It didn't sound, I guess, sexy to me, you know? And I look at that now and I'm like, God, you're stupid. You had no idea. I had no idea. And
well, Renton changed too.
It's changed. It's one of the. It's an up and coming city. It's quite expensive. School district's getting a lot better, and so all the things that I thought were wrong, but there's a lot of buyers that think that too. And so it's nice being able to put that at ease, and we'll get in that a little bit later. But so I walked in and I sat down. I talked to them, and within 5 minutes, I realized I'm being interviewed. In a subtle way, but I'm like, huh. So maybe 45 minutes, hour, I'm there, and then I didn't realize that you're not really employed. In a sense, you're sponsored. Like, if you get your license, we'll let you work here kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, so you're your own boss. That's weird.
And you did not know that.
I'm used to structure. I love structure. My wife knows that I love structure, and she hates that. But to me, there's a lot of positives about that. So first thing I told him was, I really appreciate it. I'm flattered. Don't take this the wrong way, but I really don't want to work in Renton. And they're like, you can sell houses anywhere you want. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Well, what do you mean? And what's funny is I had lived up the street lived still maybe 4 miles down the road. So it was really convenient too. But I was like, okay, maybe that's something I could consider. I said, but listen, I'm in the fitness industry. So one thing about the fitness industry, you never quit during the winter. That's when business is good. I said, and Gold's Gym always has this weight challenge, and it typically starts you start doing the pre-sales and stuff for it in December, and it ends in May. I said, so how about May? How about May? That's when I'll do it.
Right.
And so what I did, and not trying to be boastful, but I would get up at about 4 in the morning. I would study for about 2 hours, and then I would get ready, and then I would go to work.
So you'd study real estate?
Real estate, correct.
At that point, did you know anything other than your own experience shopping? Nothing. And, the Rockwell Institute is the training that I did. You have 2 options, in person, or you can do the online version. The online version is so painful, but it's so convenient. You have this monotone voice talking to you in little characters, a little woman in a dress, a little man in a suit, and they're taking you through this online thing. It's horrible, but it's very necessary. Right.
And so at very early mornings during the week, I would do that. And then probably it was my wife's birthday. My wife's birthday was in April, only a month away from when I was supposed to be starting. I was going to put in my notice, 30-day notice, that I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to be able to, I'll try and find somebody that can replace me, because I had a really important role and I had a really large staff, and it was very successful. Well, they fired me. So I said, okay, I guess I'm free then. I have more time on my hand. So I spent time at the library, and that's where I was studying. And that's that's where I did my thing. And I didn't want to focus on the negative of that situation. It was very unfortunate. I thought I had, a connection with the owner and everything, but it was a positive in the end. So
did the firing make you view being your own boss in the real estate market as maybe this is something that's better than working for someone in a structured system?
I felt being free from that, because there was some negativity that had been starting to happen. We had some things happen where some people had left before me, some by choice, some by not by choice. And so there was a relief, there was a freedom in a sense, but slight terror, I guess, too, because that security of 2 weeks, I was paid every week, that paycheck all the time it was gone.
That's huge. That's something that terrifies everyone, at least at first.
Yeah, a little terrified.
So I have to ask this. So you've gone from telling your mortgage officer, who was the one who told you should get into it.
His name.
So you've gone from telling that guy, you know what, I'm in the fitness industry, I'm not sure I want to be in real estate, to telling John L. Scott, I'm not sure I want to work in Renton, to waking up at 4 a.m. studying for real estate. What was it about the industry that you saw or realized that made you say, this might be something I'm willing, the Renton thing, I'm willing to look past? What was it in your head at that time that you said, maybe I should give it a shot?
That's a good question. So I would say it's all been about level of service and what people view as an acceptable standard of service. I thought, I will absolutely kill this. It'll be so easy because it's just me. But I'm new and I have no credibility in this field. And that'll be my biggest challenge, is to win people over. And it's a little easier than it ended up being than I thought it was going to be. It was more mental. Typically, you're in your head a lot anyhow. That's what we do. I've worked with all walks of life. And in sales isn't hard. If it's hard, you're doing it wrong. And if you feel like you're selling something, you're doing it wrong. If somebody's in front of you, they're there for a reason. You know, the biggest risk is you talking to the point that it makes them leave. People typically talk too much. My wife would say that I do. She'd be wrong. But you should be listening more. People will tell you what they want by just you listening to them. So I knew that part of it would come naturally. I just wanted to make sure that I was a subject matter expert on what I needed to know. Right. As I got into the industry, I didn't realize how much there was I needed to know and how I needed to know it all the time, every day, because it's fluid. It's always changing.
Absolutely.
It's always changing.
So you viewed it as a challenge, and you said, I'll take up the challenge because you are a competitive guy. And especially with the experience that you had with your previous agents, you were like, there's so much room to do better. And you felt
this is correct. And then obviously the owner of Gold's Gym pushed me there a little bit more.
So that worked in your favor.
Now I'm here.
So you're waking up at 4 a.m. and then you don't do the Gold's Gym anymore and you're hitting the library. How long of a period did you spend not working as an agent, but just learning and studying and getting to a point?
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
So 5 weeks, and you felt comfortable, or did you reach a point, or is 5 weeks normal?
What's funny is I don't know if there is a normal, because I have heard of people that I've spoken with that took 6 months, took a year. Some took only several weeks, sooner than me. Where are they currently in real estate? It's a different conversation.
Right.
I felt like I wasn't going fast enough for me. So the work ethic that I have, it just seemed pretty natural, but at times I felt like I needed to do more. And then when that day came that I scheduled the test and then I took it, the feeling of relief, satisfaction was there, but very short-lived, because what's next? Right. Now I want to get on it. So taking your fingerprints, getting your picture, getting your license mailed from the state. Then you go to your office, which is the office that I'm at, John L. Scott Renton. And then, you get the email introduction, you're the brand new one, you're a newbie. And then, when you're new, you have a starting point, and the starting point to me is one of my favorite places, because to me, that's what I can't wait to look back on. Don't get stuck in it, because it's just temporary. So I was excited. They put you in a place called the pit. It sounds scary, but it's not. Basically, it's cubicles, 12 or so, and you're there if you want to be there. You can be home, work from home. You can work from Starbucks. I did everything. The first few months. I worked from Starbucks. I worked from home. I worked in the pit. I did everything that I could do to put in quality work.
And you tried working out of different places to see what works for you personally. Correct. Better.
One of the things I definitely realized is working at home was the worst thing I could do. I love the news. It's always on. I have 3 dogs. I had 2 at the time. I have 3 now. I have a cat. I have a saltwater tank, and I have a turtle tank. I couldn't have any more distractions except someone talking in my face.
But you've never worked from home, so you had no idea that
I had no idea. It sounds like a great idea. It's a horrible idea. So it didn't work for me. So the office is where I wanted to be, because you have all these successful people. When I was a police officer, I talked to the veteran cops about this and that to know. I needed to be doing that there. So that's what I did more of. I picked a couple of really good brokers in my office, and we connected. And I had a project that was actually starting that I needed somebody's help with, and we became friends. We're friends now, and I learned a lot in that amount of time. It's like anything else. You do your coursework, you do your book work, that's fine. But when you get in the trenches and you're doing it, you need to know how it's really done. The ins and the outs, and that's what I need to pick up on. Being in the office does that. Not to mention opportunities. There are consumers and clients that walk into the office and they have questions, and if you're available, you are there if they call you. But you got to make sure you know what you're talking about. So for me, being informed, researching, I did it to the point that I wanted to be so confident in everything that I could possibly know. So that's how I did that for the workspace. Now, you've seen a little bit how I work now. I have more of a varied way that I work, and it works very, very well for me.
You figured out a system. So you briefly mentioned taking a test after the 5 weeks and you passed to become a real estate agent.
Yes, the state exam.
So it sounds like there's no specific amount of time someone needs to study. You just need to know enough to pass the test, and
Correct.
then you get your...
This is the online version. If you do the in-person at the Rockwell Institute, I can't remember how long it is. I would assume it's going to be a couple months. I would assume, for that much information to be in a classroom environment. So
once you get your certificate or license, when you pass the test, could you be a real estate agent without working for a company so you have to work? You have to be associated with the brokerage, because you are paid your commissions through a brokerage. So when a home sells, the proceeds go through a title and escrow company. The escrow company then sends the money to your brokerage. Your brokerage divvies up the money to you based on your compensation plan. And the compensation plan changes based on your sales, how many years experience, what current one you have in place, things of that nature. So you wouldn't be paid. It's not possible. You are breaking the law. Wow. You can't do that. You can't just do that. You have to have a brokerage that you're associated with. So if anyone out there is thinking, I'll become a real estate agent and all there is to it is passing a test, what's wrong? You need an interview with an actual brokerage. Correct, because your license has to be there. You have a designated broker, branch manager, that's going to be in charge of that office. They have your actual license. They have it. And if you were to leave and go to another brokerage, you can't just start that day the next day. That license has to go to the Department of Licensing, and then it's sent to the place that you're going to next. It may take several days to a week. So you can't do that. And obviously, you definitely cannot be a real estate broker operating without a license, selling real estate between two parties and saying, I'm going to facilitate the sale, and you don't have an active license. That's definitely a no-no. Got it. So a brokerage cannot exist without real estate agents. Absolutely. And real estate agents cannot work without being affiliated. That's how it is here. That's how it works, at least in Washington. So you do that. Talk about your first client, your first time getting out there. You know, you're obviously you never feel 1,000% ready, but you're at a point, you're working for John L. Scott. Take me through your first experience. Sure. So I was in training, and a very good friend of mine, Emily Alisi, her husband Ryan Alisi, they were contemplating selling their house. And it's funny because Emily was my client when I was a personal trainer. So in a sense, I worked for her. And then eventually, because her personality is so awesome, I recruited her to be my trainer. And so she worked for me. Yeah, and she's thriving in the fitness industry now. She reached out to me and basically said, you need to hurry up because we want to sell our house. We need to get this done. And at that point, you've never sold a house in your life. No. And just because you guys were friends, you said, we want to go with Ruben. Yeah, so most people want to work with people that they like. It's a people business, like most sales jobs, kind of how it is. So they like me, I like them, and pretty much anyone that I've worked with has been like that as well. Same for referrals. So not only is it my first whatever, they're friends. So the standards are even higher than they normally are for me. I want to be absolutely perfect. So the research that I did was great because that's now the standard I do for any single person, and it's been great. So my job was to research everything about their neighborhood in Duval, and then where they want to move to in Seattle. They were renting in Seattle, and then they had a renter in their home. So I learned very quickly how a renter typically that doesn't care about the home that they live in can leave it in worse condition than when they got it, and that's what happened with this house. So I had a great time, and I don't mean to be to sound like I didn't. I mean, I had a really fun time being able to find the right services for painters, carpet guy, landscaper, all that kind of stuff for getting that home ready. I was told by
several brokers in my office that I was doing too much. The services, the level of service I was doing was too much.
Now, what was, when they said you were doing too much, did they come from a point of a place where it could bite you in the butt, or you're doing too much, meaning you don't have to and you could still get away with less?
Exactly. And that brought me to the mentality of why I got into it. Well, that's your standard. That's the standard. That's what I'm trying to change. I'm going to be the broker that's going to go there. I'm even going to help you pack your stuff and move. That's just what I like to do. And if you don't like that, that's totally up to you. But people will. They will. Now, if it gets to a point where I'm doing, 5 to 6 deals a month, depending on what they are, that's going to be difficult. But if I have a team member, hopefully they'll have the same type of standards and work ethic that I have. The feeling of having somebody look at you or speak to you or write you an email and be just so taken back with the level of service that they received, it's so gratifying. It really is. I think I went to that first house that I sold. I must have went there 7 or 8 times for this and that stuff. And that is so uncommon. Some of it was because I didn't realize when certain things could be done at certain times, so I made more work for myself. It was a 30 to 40 minute drive each time.
Wow.
But my whole goal was to exceed their expectations and to really get more of an understanding of how this works. And I got exactly that.
You did.
And it was very gratifying, and that jumped right into they need to buy a house. So we jumped from there, and then less than a month later, I got a client, a referral from them. I started to see how when you really, really make an impact on somebody, and they hear that somebody wants, I have a guy, this is what happened, da da da. Because most people have a person. I have a guy. Some people feel uncomfortable asking, what's special about it? Tell me what they did that makes you want me to work with them. It's a fair question, because if you look at it on paper, a real estate broker writes a contract for you. It gets accepted by that real estate broker, presenting to the seller, and then the escrow company does the rest. That's all how it looks. So much more than that. But you don't understand that because you're not actually in it.
Right.
Or maybe it hasn't been explained to you. So it's nice when somebody says, well, we met in public somewhere and they educated me how buying a house works. They showed me the areas that I'm looking in. This is what homes are selling for. Because when you go to somebody and say, well, I only want to pay $500,000, but I want to live right there. Can I show you what right there is costing right now?
Right.
What do you mean? Just, you want this and you want that. I'm going to put it in search criteria and let's just look what that's selling for right now. And by the way, that was 30, 40 days ago. Probably went up by now. And depending on when we're looking, you might have more buyers that you're competing with. If it's a very special house, even more so. If you're looking for like a horse property or farm, a little bit different, it's going to be less people that you're competing with. So it's nice when you're able to sit down with somebody and enlighten them.
So would you say a client getting a rough idea of what the houses in the area they're looking at are selling for prior to communicating with an agent, would you say that's one of the things that might save time?
It will. It also shows the real estate broker how serious you are. That's important as well. So I have a client that it's a new client coming from California, and they're in San Diego, and they want to look at houses when they come in for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. How do you go about doing that? Well, you have to ask some questions to them, and that is, are you pre-approved to buy a house? What's your budget? Because you don't want to come up here and you're spinning your wheels, you're looking at houses, and you found out they can't even afford, $250,000, and that's not going to get them anything. What are you looking for? What's your timeline? How serious are you? Because you have to find a job too. You need to get a letter of intent from an employer, because the lender is going to want to underwrite you, if you don't have a job in hand, then you're a huge liability. And why are we going to give you $400,000 to buy a house? It's not going to make any sense. So I called her and said, listen, I don't know if you know, but this is the steps that you should take. And I told her everything that she needs to do and then send me before we can meet. And she said, I didn't even think about that. Oh, yeah. She's like, well, I think my budget's $500,000. When I started showing her the properties that she wants, what they're selling for, what they're under contract for, and what they're listed for, then she realized my budget actually should be $600,000. We have the money. That's what it's going to cost, and we have to be in that area. That's where it's going to be. So now she knows that's what. But I also told her that's what it is right now. I don't know what it's going to be like August, end of the month when you come.
It changes so rapidly.
It can change so rapidly, but that's what it's showing. So getting her to that point shows me she is an actual buyer, which means I'm not going to waste her time. She's not going to waste my time. It's going to be a productive meeting. She's now on my schedule for 3 solid days.
Wow.
So my whole focus those 3 days is her.
So now for anyone who is thinking of becoming a real estate agent, when you just mentioned 3 days with her, those 3 days will only pay you back in the event that you end up working with them.
Absolutely.
So it's really a job where you don't make money by spending time with people. You make money by the things you provide them, and that's either buying or selling a house with them.
You're correct. So I would say an aggressive, serious buyer that you sit down with and you connect and they say, I want to work with you and you want to work with me, you're probably going to see a paycheck in about 6 weeks. That's probably the best case scenario that I can think of. You were a little bit unique. It was 4 weeks because we saw one house and that happened. It is a little unusual, but it can happen. But typically 6 weeks is a good rule of thumb. Normally it's a lot longer. That's with the buyers. For sellers, it can be varied as well, depending on how they need to be prepped for a listing. I like to get to a listing 2 weeks to a month before the listing is supposed to go live, so I can get the house ready. There's a lot of things that sellers focus on that they shouldn't. They think, I see this, I see that. The buyer's not. Focus on the major things that you need to look at, and that could be another segment on how to get your house ready for market. But you know, it's always been kind of a joke saying, but it's so accurate, and that real estate brokers are always the last one to get paid, because when the house closes, the wire is typically sent sometimes the same day, but definitely the next business day. So if you close on a Thursday at 4 p.m., the seller has their money in their bank Friday morning. Just to share with somebody how they went, well, how does it work? How do you get paid? Friday, the escrow company will mail out the check to your brokerage or whoever does the financials for your brokerage. Typically next day mail, maybe Monday, Tuesday it gets there. Then they balance the numbers, then it gets mailed or couriered to your office, and then it's in your inbox. So for me, so I have a closing coming up on next Wednesday. I'll probably get my check Monday. And that's how it works.
Interesting. So you mentioned your first, back to the first client you had, you mentioned your first client happened to be a good family friend.
They were work friend.
Work friend.
Work friend.
So that you happen to know them, and they were excited to work with you because you were a friend.
They were asking to work with me, which was surprising, but somewhat expected as well because of the bond that we all had. But it was flattering.
Yeah.
Little scary in a way, because these people know you on a level that you've always exceeded. It has to be the same.
So they knew you in different areas. So in your situation, your first client happened to be a friend, and it worked great. What would you tell a new agent out there who's never sold a place, and their first client might not be a friend? How would you go about pitching yourself to a client when they say, show me what you sold or helped someone buy, and the answer is nothing?
Sure.
how would you tell an agent out there to approach their starting out if, unlike yourself, there's no friend that's looking to buy or sell that they know?
So I would say you do not advertise yourself in a manner that's going to exploit the weaknesses you have. So if somebody is looking for a home, and for however reason, however way you came across them, find out why they haven't been successful. Find out what that real estate broker did or didn't do that they should have or should have not done, how you would be different. Focus on your past track record of success in life. Focus on that. So my first 3 sales were, 2 were friends, 1 was a referral from a friend. The 4th one was somebody that I didn't know at all, but I only had 3 sales under my belt. That's not a lot. So let's just say the average number in Seattle, the greater Seattle area, is 28,000 brokers. How do you pick? Well, reviews are huge. Yeah, but what if you don't have any sales? Well, then you got to really focus on your past experience in life and how you will exceed any expectation that fell short on what they've already had. Maybe the broker took a day and a half, 2 days to respond back to email. There was a negative experience. They showed up late. They weren't listening to you. That's a big one. They're trying to show you things that you don't want, and you've told them that. I don't know how many people have said, God, my real estate broker is just not listening to me. They want me to buy this, and I don't want that, and I don't understand why that's happening. I wouldn't focus on, this is why that real estate broker did that. Focus on how you're going to be different, how you're going to make them happy, and how you are doing this with them. We're buying this house. We're doing this. It's not you. It's we're. This is a team effort. I'm in it with you.
And I did feel that with you personally,
which is great.
Yes.
And then if that buyer doesn't have a lender, or has a lender that you know has had a lot of problems and it'll be an obstacle to get the offer accepted, tactfully express that. But have your reasons, have your proof why, and then have a lender that you've already vetted and you have a working relationship with. You should have a team. You should have 1 to 3 inspectors that you work with, that they have the same ethics that you have. You know, a lender, insurance guy. It's your team, and they should have the same values and ethics as you. It feels good, especially on the listing side, when a seller knows that you're bringing all these people with you and they're just like you. It says a lot. But yeah, when you are new, it's going to be a challenge. You know, I became a mentor at the beginning of this year. It has been really gratifying meeting brand new brokers that have no experience in real estate and helping them and watch them grow. And 2 are on their own, closing deals, doing very well. It is a career. They're making good money. And I have one now that just closed her first 2 deals this week. It's really, really fun because I get these kind of questions and I'm able to coach them and say, this is what I would do. And then when they follow through and you see the success of it, it's very, very gratifying. In this industry where results and reviews are paramount, it is difficult to say, you know, pick me. It is difficult. Anyone that says it's easy, they really don't know how this works. Zillow is one of the main resources that a buyer and seller uses. So getting people to leave a review about you when you've had real estate conversations or transactions, it is imperative to your success. I've been blessed. You left me a great one as well. So it's funny, living all around, you live in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. The vibe is different in each one. The Pacific Northwest, there's definitely more of a passive aggressive. People are uncomfortable about asking for things sometimes. So people feel uncomfortable about asking uncomfortable questions. You have to do that to the point of, will you please leave me a review? And this is how you would do it, and this is how you do it. 2, are you pre-approved to buy a home? Can you afford this home? There's a there's a reason for this. It's not just I'm blindly stating things or asking questions. Sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to be successful.
Also, asking sometimes uncomfortable questions avoid even more uncomfortable situations later.
You're right about that.
So asking someone if they're pre-approved is more comfortable than finding out at the end of things that they're not.
Especially if you've been showing houses for 3 weeks and you realize they just filed bankruptcy last year.
Wow.
You know, you did a disservice to everybody, including the seller that got notifications from their agent, hey, your home's being showed right now. It was being showed by somebody that could never afford to buy that house.
Wow. So walk me, if you will, through a typical home buying process with a client.
Sure.
From the real estate agent's perspective.
Great.
Assuming people watching this maybe know a little bit or have bought a place, and then we could maybe touch on maybe some things that as an agent clients could do better, because you had your first house you've sold. Every single client has the first house they buy. So not everyone have a first time. So, but walk me through what the process is like on a typical working with a client to buy a place for them from your end, if someone's looking to get into becoming a real estate agent.
Okay. I'll give you an example of what we call a up call. An up call is when you have a floor shift. Floor shift, you're on call for a time period on a certain day. And it's a call that comes into the front desk. Somebody can say, hey, I have a question about this house, or I'm interested in buying a house. I don't know what goes on. Can I talk to a broker? And then I'll get an email or get a call from the front desk. Hey, you have an up call. This is the person's name, phone number. Sometimes there's a little blurb of this is what they want. Sometimes there's nothing. So I call, introduce myself, and let them kind of lead you based on what they say. And when you're making this call, you need to have a pen and paper out. Don't go off of memory, okay? Because you want to make notes on things you hear, maybe the things the way they were stated, question mark behind things you hear. Those are good notes to keep. I've always have notes on every single client I've ever had. That's very helpful. So when I'm asking them the reason for the call, I'm trying to get as much information from them. When they're talking to me, based on what they're saying, I will know if there's holes that we need to fill because they don't understand what is going to take place, what's needed in order to get from point A to point B. So the most recent one that I had, they were calling about a specific property. They were viewing it on Zillow. I said, okay.
So at what point would they call the office?
As soon as they had a question.
So they're looking at Zillow.
This person had a question and said, I want to go see this property. I want to know about this or that. So we call. Well, this is another good time to show your value, because the matrix, the system that all real estate brokers use, it's the database, it's our livelihood. It's where everything is kept. The sales, everything's going on with it. I enter the number for the house and it's pending. It's not available. Zillow didn't upload. I'm sorry, it didn't update. So he's looking at something that's not accurate. So then I'm able to show him that, okay, the home that you want actually has been in contract for a couple of days. It has? Yeah, it has. Can I send you an email? Can I get your information? Because that's important. And I can show you this. So my own website with my own search stuff, I send him and he sees that he has it. While he's on the phone, ask him buying questions. What about the house did you like? Did you want to see it? Oh, I like that area, and it's, and the price is okay. Okay. So you're open to something else in that area? Well, pretty much anywhere in King County, really. I don't have any kids. I'm single. It just doesn't matter. So that to me was a little bit of, not really of confusion, but it was like, it's a little too general, because he probably has a job. He has to commute. So where is it? Once we started narrowing down all these specific questions, we realized he was probably going to want to live in Renton or Kent. That made the most sense for his commute. If he could afford it more, a little bit more north. But working in South Bellevue, that was probably going to be the best place for him. So what we did, or what I did, I should say, is I created a search for him and told him, this is what we can do. I said, but before we start talking too much about specifics and houses and, you know, when to buy, are you pre-approved with a lender at this time? He said, actually, I am. Well, this particular buyer went through all the necessary steps. He did.
Wow, he was ready.
He was ready. He went online to his bank, I believe it was Home Street, and he did everything he needed to do online. Asked for his loan officer's name. He gave it to me. We connected via email, and we're currently in process searching for a home.
Wow. So this is a client who you believe will go smoothly, and
we will.
Just by how
his budget exceeds what house he's looking for. So he's living about $100,000 below his means. So it shouldn't be a problem.
Say you found a place with him tomorrow, hypothetically, and he ends up liking it. Briefly, take me through the process from your end. When I bought a place, I know what the process was from my end of things. What would it look, a typical buying a house with someone look like from your end?
Sure.
In terms of your day-to-day work that you wake up to, if someone wants to become an agent?
So if somebody says, I like this house, my goal is to give them as much information I can give them without being there. So the seller disclosure statement, which is a statement from the seller, the history of the house, everything I know about the house, anything that's happened to the house while I'm there. If it's been pre-inspected, hopefully I can get access to the pre-inspection. And then anything in the broker remarks that are not public that he'll need to know about. Regarding there's a renter in it, if there's issues going on with the neighborhood, anything that he doesn't have access to, I want to show him before we get out there. One, it adds value to who I am as I'm doing that. Two, it will prevent us from wasting his time and my time going out to something that he's not going to like. If he says, I don't want a house close to my house, and then I look at the aerial map and there's a house right next to it, I can send him a screenshot or just tell him this isn't going to work for you based on your criteria that you told me. But if it is, and he likes everything that I've sent him, then I'm going to look at, is the house vacant? If it's vacant and I'm available when he's available, let's do it. If I'm not available when he's available, let's see why I'm not available, and can I move it without inconveniencing anybody else that's already in my schedule. Because you do not ever cancel on anybody if they're already in your schedule. Everybody's equal. Nobody's more important than the person. So if you can move your schedule, move it. If you can't, find the next available day. Let him know that he is important, because he is important.
Yes.
And we're going to figure out when we can find time. And when we go into the house, we're going to be trying to see as much of it as possible, as long as possible, and try and hit on the key things that you already knew from your first interview with him, things he was looking for and that house has, and talk about it. And have information about the house accessible, so when you're there and he asks a question, you're ready to answer. You don't want to say, oh, actually, I don't know. I'm going to find out. Because if I'm a buyer, I'm in my head, I'm like, why is he going to find out? We had this scheduled. He should have everything he knows about it. Unless he's asking about technical things about the house that over my head.
Got it. How, percentage-wise, how much would you consider your job yourself to be a salesperson versus a matchmaker? Are you selling people houses, or are you bringing people and houses together? Talk about that. How would you view that? And did you discover otherwise from, prior to entering the business, do you see it differently now?
So the contract is the sales part. That's 10%, which is the offer. The 90% is really everything else that's there. You're a choreographer. You're keeping pieces together, because it is a constant movement, the contract process, the stages that it goes in. You're keeping it together. But before you get to where your buyer says, I want to make an offer, you're trying to help them make a decision. So the philosophy that I have is, I'm going to get you the most accurate and detailed information for you to make the best informed decision. You may have heard me say that before, because it's true. It ultimately is your choice. When somebody asks me my opinion, I'm going to give it, but I'm going to tell them, don't let my opinion sway you one way or another. I remember one of the things you asked me is it crazy that I'm making an offer on the first house that I've seen? It's not crazy, it's unusual. But the thing is, when you see a house and you see other houses, you're going to come back to that first house if they're all pretty similar. Something about that first one, because you wanted to see it first.
I remember you telling me that.
Something got you there. And then you use that as a base point and you start comparing everything else. And you start noticing other ones don't have that. And then you may even ask yourself, why did I want to see that one first? You know, it's fun seeing multiple houses with people when they can see for themselves, this listing got professional pictures. This one didn't. This one is a little deceiving the way it was listed. I didn't know there was this next to it. You know, you get their opinion. Oh, I didn't know. So it's fun. It's very enlightening. I don't take anything personal. It's all about educating them on their possible purchase. And if somebody feels like they should like a house because they're wasting my time, then they really don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. There's a couple, I posted this on Facebook. I met them at open house 10 months before their actual sale. We saw over 50 houses. I'm sorry, 48 houses.
Wow.
That's a lot of houses.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're great people and they're my friends. And you think they'll talk about me in a positive way? Absolutely. That's a referral partner for sure. And I know there were times that they probably thought to themselves, God, we're wasting his time. They didn't. I looked forward to every showing. That's a lot of showings. That's not typical. I would say the average buyer, I show 6 to 10 homes, and then they make a decision on an offer. Wow.
So what are some skills necessary that you either discovered once you fell into the business or knew ahead of time that are just vital for someone who's looking to do what someone like you is doing?
It's funny. This is it's one of our senses that we don't use sometimes, and it's become a skill. It's listening. Listening it's so important. A lot of the things that you think you don't know, you will if you just listen to your client, what they're looking for, and then you listen for things that make you realize you need to find out more information for them. So I knew listening was important. I didn't think it was going to be as important for this. Attention to detail, I knew was going to be important, and it is. Work ethic, obviously, I knew was important. It's been a really blessing for me. Determination, follow through is really important. Thick skin. It's not a skill. I think it's a trait. If you don't have it, get it, because some people take this very personal. It's
when it shouldn't be.
When it shouldn't be. This isn't personal. It's just, I mean, the other thing I would say is if you get mad or angry because somebody's not going to offer on a house that you've shown them, you shouldn't be doing it.
Shouldn't be.
This isn't for you. You're not serving. Your job is to serve. And it's funny, I mean, my whole life's pretty much been service, you know? So this is just in a different way. One of the things that I joked with somebody the other day about, and I mentioned before, is they say, you know, is this hard? I said, you know, if I could talk somebody into giving me a gun or a knife, I can definitely help somebody buy a house. It's not difficult. They're there for that reason. They just need guidance. But you just got to make sure that you serve them in the best possible way to give them all the guidance that they deserve.
Wow.
It's really, really important.
What would you say, percentage-wise, are you representing buyers? Are you working with buyers versus sellers? How does...
In the beginning, you're going to work with buyers only because it's easier to get a buyer to work with you because there's an abundance of them, and a lot of them are first-time buyers, and the budgets are a little bit less. Another thing that I notice is some brokers who, in my opinion, have lost their way, or maybe they just weren't the nicest of people, they won't work with certain people at a certain budget. And that can make some people feel less. So when you're a new broker, you can really work a certain demographic price point and come across quite a bit of people. So in this area in King County, I would say right around $350 is about the starting budget for a purchase. And there's a good bit of people like that. And so you have a better opportunity of getting that type of client if you're brand new. You want to make it worth your effort. You don't want to commute to South Tacoma for a $200,000 property.
You need to be smart about it.
You need to be smart about it because your hourly does have a number, even if you don't have a sale yet. You have a value, you have a quality, you have worth. So, how much time are you going to put into that as instead of referring it to a broker that works in that area and they specialize with that community, with that type of house.
If you were to refer someone to a broker who lives in that, works in that community, would you get a commission?
You would. There's a percentage that you would set up. I've worked with several brokers out of state. I've done 3 deals out of state. I have my 4th pending right now. So you want to have working relationships in cities that have a correlation with Seattle. So in Arizona and in Texas, you will see on a map how related we are, where the buyers are coming from, where the sellers are going. California, where the buyers are coming from. So a lot of the people that have been in houses for a long time and their equity is up and they're looking to cash out, their home is their retirement in essence. They're moving to states that may not have a state tax, cost of living is a little bit lower, and they're buying their retirement home there.
So you're saying if you work in Seattle and your seller is moving to Arizona and you refer them to someone in Arizona to help them buy a place, you could get commission off that.
Correct.
So in a sense, it would be smart for a real estate agent, and I never thought of this until this moment. You might be working in a specific state physically, but your head should be, where are my clients coming from? Where are my clients going to? And
you find brokers in that area that are successful. You either can do it from referral, from brokers in your office that work with, or you are on Zillow yourself, reading the reviews. I've done phone interviews with 2 or 3 brokers in a specific area, and I picked them based on that and referred them to my clients.
Wow.
I've never had anybody unhappy on anyone that I've ever picked. And then, certain markets like Dallas, I have an ongoing relationship. So there's things that you can do to supplement the income that you have. More streams is better than just one. Because again, just to go back to what we were talking about before, you don't get a paycheck every week, every 2 weeks. Your goal is to always have something in the pipeline, so you do have a closing every couple of weeks. My goal is to have two a month. So it's something. Getting back to being in this profession, what it's like is it is uncomfortable, and because it's set up this way, that's kind of how it is. So I also tell somebody, this is really important too, you need to have at least 6 months of reserves
when getting into it.
Absolutely, because you'll be surprised how much money can go out even when you're being frugal, because you have to buy things in this profession. You need signs. Your license costs money. Training costs money. If you only have jeans and t-shirts, you need to buy a wardrobe. There's just a lot that goes into it. I'm just thinking back on when I first started, and I was a little surprised. But I had the reserves, thankfully. Married, my wife does well, and I had done well, so I'd saved quite a bit as well. I was just blessed that people were wanting and ready to work with me right when I started.
Ruben, is the real estate industry for everyone?
Absolutely not.
It's not. Why not?
Part of the things I just mentioned is the lack of security. How many people have you known, or people watching this thinking about, how many bad employees are still working? They get paychecks every 2 weeks. If you're a bad real estate broker, you're going to be very hungry. very hungry. You're not going to make any money. You're just
Wow.
not. And the thing is you're making money, but how much of it are you keeping? Because this is an expensive profession. I have events, I have client gifts, I have parties. These are things that you have to constantly do because you have to be top of mind. You do. You got to stay engaged. You can't have a transaction with a client and then think in 2 years when they need to do something else, oh, they're going to call me. Why? Did you leave that much of an impression? Are you contacting them or your friends? One of the things that I try and strive for is every client becomes a friend.
And that right there leads me to my next question, which is something I want to make sure I get in with you today. Talk about the importance, and this is something I know you do really well at. Talk about the importance of continuing that relationship with someone who you worked with and you're done and things are closed and they have their house or you sold their house. Talk about why, if someone getting into the industry, why would it be not only smart but vital for someone, a real estate agent, to keep that relationship going?
My hope would be that not only on the business aspect, but you're a people person enough that you truly like these people and they are your friends. And they are people that you genuinely care about and you know about their life. On social media, you follow them, they follow you. On the business side of it, there's nothing but positives. You want them to be your cheerleader. You want them to talk about you. You want them to come to the events that you have. If they don't come to the event, follow up and find out why. And you want to try and get face to face. I try and have a contact with every single client I've ever had, minimum once a month.
Wow.
Minimum. People that have purchased a home, I like to send them it's a packet called CMA, and letting them know what their home is worth. It's nice to know that you're building equity in your house. That's important. But these people that you left a positive and lasting impression on, hopefully they're going to talk about you to the point when they hear someone that needs help in the real estate world or have a question, you're going to come up. I mean, I've had 3 referrals in July. 3. This morning on the way here, I got a text from somebody in Gig Harbor. And she said, hey, I want to let you know, somebody was on social media and she sent me the screenshot asking about, I need help in Gig Harbor. Who would you recommend?
Because she knew you're not down there.
And she knows that I helped her buy a house there. And my old mentality is there in effect is I'll work anywhere for anyone. I have somewhat tailored what I will and what I won't do, what I will refer out. But anyone who I refer is going to have the same type of work ethic that I do. Because I don't want to refer somebody and them not live up to the standards that I have.
Wow.
But yeah, that was just on the drive-in today. It's great, and it's so rewarding when those things happen.
Absolutely.
And all the work that I did back to waking up at 4 in the morning and studying it's been so worth it.
Paid off. How long did it take you from the day you started in the industry to the moment you felt, okay, I got it? Sure, there's more to learn, but how long did it take you to feel like, you mentioned how important it was for you to make sure that you had the answer for anyone who asked you questions?
So I'll give you an example of this. My designated broker told me that most people get it about the 6th transaction, the 6th contract that they write. Mine was my 5th. And compare that to the first time I wrote a contract, 2 hours, to the average time now is about 15 minutes.
Wow.
A lot of it is the doubt, the second guessing. You're just wanting to make sure that you have everything perfect. Writing the contract it's second nature at this point. I've done so many. Dealing with people, there's always going to be subtle differences, always. I like that. Particular homes are going to have a different scenario about them. You'll have things that you might need to call a title company for assistance and say, I've never had that. Or you're dealing with a trust, haven't had that. You're always going to be learning. My focus is anything that I've experienced, I want to know the most about it, so when it happens the next time, I'm even better at it. So as far as being comfortable dealing with buyers and sellers, I'm extremely comfortable. I know there's some brokers I've heard that say, "Oh, I stay away from those type of deals," or "I don't deal with vacant land." And why? Why not? Just anything that you come across is an opportunity.
Wow.
It's an opportunity.
Wow. So in the name of wrapping things up, there's too many things to get to in a limited time. What would you tell, and I ask everyone of this, what would you tell anyone out there looking to, be a Ruben someday, somewhere? And what are some things that maybe you would find helpful if you knew prior to getting into it? What would you tell someone?
For me, the way I look at it is I would not be as successful as a real estate broker if I hadn't lived the life that I have already lived. I do not think I'd be as good as a real estate broker if that's what I first did. I don't think that I would have been. I needed to learn and do so much and learn how to work with people and different people and listen and just appreciate different things about life and experiences of people. I think you need to have some life experience. If I was renting an apartment, to me that doesn't show well, in my opinion. I want my real estate broker to be successful. I want them to have a track record of success, life experience. That's the mentality that I have. Are there brokers that have been in the industry and that's all that they've ever known? Personally, I don't know of any. The successful ones that I know personally have done other things. Another thing I would say too is it helps to fail at something. It really does. I considered my first 6 months in Seattle a failure. It's not what I wanted to happen. My standards were high, but I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. And it was a sinking feeling that didn't last long, but I knew there was going to be more. And when you reach a level of success and you look back on those moments, they're just so gratifying. I think if I started this career in real estate, I don't think I would have experienced any of that.
So timing was huge for you.
It couldn't have been better,
wow.
Really. Other thing I would say is a support system. My wife has been amazingly supportive in this venture. I mean, how many spouses would say, I'm going to start in something that's not going to make any money for a while? And by the way, it costs a lot of money just to get started. It's pretty risky. The minute that I think, I've done something wrong or I'm failing, she will be the one to tell me, you're in your own head. You always stress about this stuff, because the minute you have a deal, you have to worry about when's the next one coming, where's it going to come from, because this is a constant hustle. It's what you're doing.
Absolutely.
If you want security, peace of mind, this isn't it. That's not how it's going to work. It's not going to work. I think you reach that at a certain level, maybe after 10 years or so, where maybe 80% of your business is referral based, and that's where you need help, you need people. I've been told that I should get an assistant soon. I like doing everything on my own. I do. I handle all my transactions, my contracts. People subcontract that out. I don't like doing that. I am a perfectionist.
Because you want to make sure it's up to the standards.
Exactly the way that I want it. I think I will reach a level where I will need help.
You'll have to.
Because I'm doing so much business at this point.
Last question. What's one thing you would change about your industry if you could?
That's a good question. One thing that I would change. I think I'd probably make the test harder.
For agents getting in.
Agents get it in. I think there are too many real estate brokers that shouldn't be real estate brokers. And it gives the industry a bad name. And I think if testing was a little more rigorous, maybe the background process, I think that would help that not be as much of an issue, in my opinion. You know, it's like anything else. When somebody has a native experience with a profession, they kind of roll everybody in that. When I was a police officer all the time, you know, less than half of 1% of police officers are ever charged and convicted with anything. The other 99.5 do nothing wrong, but they're crucified all the time. It's unfortunate. Same thing with personal trainers. All personal trainers are this or that. There's some amazing personal trainers out there. But there's a lot of personal trainers that just have a certificate on the wall. They printed them online, and they're really not that special. You shouldn't be doing that. So some real estate brokers do a disservice to people, and I think if they were vetted a little bit better, they wouldn't be in the industry. To coincide, consequences should be a little higher too, so they're not allowed to stay in the industry.
Ruben, thanks for coming out.